What if the most profound transformation of your life was waiting in the quiet, not in the noise, not in the rush, but in the stillness you've been avoiding? We live in a world that fears silence. We fill every moment with sound, distraction, connection. We're taught to measure our worth by how much we say, how much we do, how many people surround us. But what if silence isn't empty? What if solitude isn't loneliness? What if, hidden in those quiet moments you avoid, is the doorway to your truest self? In this video, we'll explore the sacred power of silence and solitude, not as punishments or voids, but as portals to clarity, to healing, to awakening. This isn't about isolation, it's about revelation. And once you understand this truth, you'll never fear being alone again. Let's begin. Imagine this. You wake up one day and there's no one around. No texts, no emails, no noise, no mirrors to reflect back who the world thinks you are. Just you. And in that moment, something strange happens. At first it feels like emptiness. Then, an ache. Then, a voice. Not from outside, from within. A whisper you haven't heard in years. Or maybe, ever. It says, "This is who you are," when no one's watching. And that's when you realize you've spent your whole life being someone for others, but you've never truly met yourself. Because to meet yourself, you need silence. In ancient traditions, mystics, monks, sages, they all knew this. The desert fathers of early Christianity retreated into barren landscapes not to escape the world, but to hear the divine without distortion. Buddha sat beneath a tree in stillness, not to run from life, but to see it clearly for the first time. Across cultures, across ages, every awakening begins with retreat, not forever, not in exile, but for a time, long enough for the noise to fade and the truth to rise. There's something sacred that only silence reveals. Not because silence gives you something, but because it takes away everything that isn't you. But here's the paradox. Silence can be terrifying. Because when the world is quiet, your inner world gets loud. The thoughts you've buried come up. The grief you avoided knocks on the door. The fears you silenced begin to speak. And yet, this is the initiation. This is the fire before the light. In solitude, you meet the parts of yourself that never had a voice. The child you abandoned, the dreams you shelved, the truths that were too wild, too weird, too inconvenient for your busy life. But these parts, they are the gateway to your real power. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly sat in silence, without music, without screens, without conversation? Just you, breathing, listening. Can you remember? Most people can't, because silence has become a stranger, and yet it is the oldest friend we've ever had. Before you learned language, before you were told who to be, you were a being of pure presence, still, quiet, whole. Silence isn't new, it's original, and every time you return to it, you come home. But the world doesn't teach this. The world teaches noise. It rewards the loudest voice in the room. It celebrates the busiest schedule. It equates being alone with failure. As if solitude is something shameful, something to escape. But what if that's the biggest lie of all? Because in solitude, you begin to remember what you really are. Not what you've been told, not what you've performed. You begin to realize you're not your job, you're not your followers, you're not your past, or even your thoughts. You are consciousness, awareness, still and wide and deep as the ocean beneath the storm. And when the noise fades, that's what remains. That's who speaks. There's a reason the mystics went into caves. There's a reason prophets wandered the wilderness. Not because they were broken, but because the deeper truths of the soul are not found in noise. They are found in the hush. And in that hush, something awakens. A clarity that doesn't come from logic, a strength that doesn't come from effort, a knowing that bypasses words. This is where you touch your intuition, your guidance, the blueprint of your soul. In the stillness, you begin to hear what your busy life drowned out, the quiet yes of your spirit, the soft no of your boundaries, the sacred why of your path. And here's the miracle. Silence doesn't just strip things away. It amplifies what's real, your creativity, your discernment, your connection to something greater, whether you call it God, Source, the universe. In the quiet, the veil thins. You may feel watched, but in the most loving way, held, guided, protected. Have you ever sat alone and suddenly felt the presence of something more? A warmth, a pressure, a knowing? That's not your imagination. That's what lives just beneath the surface, always there, always available. But only when you become still enough to feel it. Now, let's be honest. Silence isn't always peaceful at first. It can feel like withdrawal, like losing your grip on the world. Because when you're no longer distracted, you're exposed. And this is where the alchemy begins. True solitude doesn't just soothe you, it strips you. It reveals what you've been hiding. Behind your busyness, your roles, your attachments. It shows you your addictions, your illusions, your masks. But it also shows you something else. It shows you your power. Because in the silence, no one is performing. No one is watching. No one is grading your worth. You are simply there, raw, present, real. And in that realness, something unshakable rises. There's a reason so many spiritual awakenings begin with solitude, not because the world is bad, but because your identity is often built from outside in. Who you think you are is usually a collage of other people's expectations, parents, teachers, society, culture. But when you're alone long enough, those layers begin to peel away, and underneath, something ancient, something quiet, something eternal. Some call it the soul, others call it spirit, essence, higher self. Whatever the name, it's the part of you that doesn't need validation, doesn't need applause, it just is. And in solitude, that part speaks clearly. This is why monks radiate peace, why hermits, mystics, and visionaries often have a presence that feels otherworldly. They've gone into the cave, not just literally, but metaphorically. And when they return, they carry light, not the kind that comes from knowledge alone, but the kind that comes from direct contact with the infinite. You don't have to disappear into the mountains for 10 years, but you do have to make space. Silence isn't just an absence, it's a presence. And once you learn to sit with it, to welcome it, it becomes a sanctuary, a well you can return to again and again, not to escape life, but to meet it more deeply. And here's where it gets mystical. When you spend time in silence, especially intentional silence, your frequency shifts, your thoughts slow, your heart softens, your intuition heightens. You begin to notice synchronicities. You feel more attuned to nature, to people's emotions, to the energy in a room. Even your physical body responds. Breathing slows, tension melts, immune function improves, because the soul loves silence. It flourishes in stillness. And the more you lean into that stillness, the more magnetic, clear, and spiritually aligned you become. You begin to realize silence was never empty. It was full of everything you forgot you needed. If you've ever felt like the world is too loud for your spirit, if you've craved silence not out of avoidance, but out of necessity, you're not broken. You're waking up. There's a reason you feel overwhelmed by constant chatter, a reason your soul sighs in relief when you're alone. It's not weakness, it's sensitivity. And sensitivity is strength. You are one of the ones who hear what others miss, feel what others numb, sense what lies beneath the surface. And that can be exhausting. Unless you learn the sacred rhythm of returning to yourself. That rhythm begins in solitude. So if you've been feeling called to disconnect, to unplug, to retreat, to simply breathe, don't ignore it. That isn't depression. That isn't laziness. That is your inner being asking for space to reconnect. We've been taught to fear being alone, but solitude is where your frequency calibrates. It's where your truth gets loud. When you allow yourself moments of silence, even just 5 minutes a day, you open the door to deep restoration. And that restoration, it changes everything. You start responding instead of reacting. You feel guided instead of lost. You begin to create, not from pressure, but from inspiration. If this message is resonating with you, it's because some part of your soul remembers. You've likely walked this path before, in another life, another time. You've sat under trees, meditated in temples, whispered prayers into the wind, and now you're being called back to the sanctuary of your own presence, back to the knowing that doesn't come from books, but from being. Here's something simple you can do today. Sit with yourself. No phone, no agenda, just presence. Breathe deeply. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Ask quietly, what is it I've been afraid to hear in the silence? Then listen. You don't have to force insight. You don't have to make anything happen. Just listen. Let the silence reveal what's already inside you. Because in the end, the truth is this. Everything you seek, peace, purpose, connection, clarity, it's not out there, it's within you. And the keys to access it? They're hidden in silence, cradled in solitude. Not the kind that disconnects you from the world, but the kind that reconnects you to your soul. You don't have to be a monk. You don't have to disappear. You just have to say yes to a few quiet moments, to a little less noise, to a little more you. So if you're walking through a season of solitude right now, a quiet space in your life where things feel still, uncertain, maybe even a little empty, know this. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. There is wisdom growing in the silence, strength building in the pause, clarity forming in the stillness. And when the time comes, you will emerge with a new voice. Not louder, but truer. Not for the crowd, but for your soul. This silence you're stepping into, it's not the absence of life. It's the grounding of life. It's the soil where your next becoming will grow. You are not falling behind. You are not missing out. You are exactly where you need to be. Because sometimes, the soul speaks loudest when the world goes quiet. And if that quiet feels unfamiliar, stay there a little longer. It's trying to show you something. Maybe it's showing you who you really are. The you beneath the performance. The you that doesn't need to be liked or understood. The you that carries ancient wisdom, deep knowing, soft power. A soul that has known many lifetimes of truth and is now remembering. If you feel that remembering stir within you, a flicker, a pulse, a softness, don't rush past it. Sit with it. Let it expand. Because in the end, the greatest revelations don't come in thunder. They come in whispers. They come in the spaces between thoughts, the still waters of solitude, the sacred hush that reminds you, you were never lost. You were just distracted. And now, you're coming home. If this message touched something quiet inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's been walking through their own silence. And if you want more content like this, subscribe. Because we're building a space here, not of noise, but of depth. A place where your soul is safe to feel, to remember, to rise. Until next time, may your silence be sacred, your solitude be sweet, and your spirit always know the way back to itself.